You know, make sure you bring in advisors who've been entrepreneurs, who've raised money, who've really, you know, got some battle scars. Well, Mike Masterson is a guy who's our executive chairman. He's been an entrepreneur now for about 22 years. Started a venture capital fund, sold a couple businesses. Has really been around the block, and you know, can really be that senior statesman. So as we're out there going, you know, full bore to commercialize something, and right now what we're trying to commercialize is our idea that we can take a drug, put this molecular camouflage around it, and give it to a patient, and they'll see better results from the drug. You know, really take that mentality and go to pharmaceutical companies, biotechnology companies, and say, we know you're having these issues, and we think we've got an idea that can really, you know, change how you're addressing them. Now, in those companies, what happens is you often run up against stone walls, right? And so having someone who understands the business development that goes on in some of these pharmaceutical companies is important. So Mike brings that to the table. You know, he's been in those conversations. He knows to get by some of those speed bumps. So when it says pick your team with great care, it's great care about how to achieve your mission. It's great care about how to achieve what, you know, the founding faculty members want to achieve with their business. I know everybody knows capital markets are in pretty turmoil right now, right? But Vladimir and the rest of the team and I sat down and said, how do we want to build this business so that, you know, we don't take capital now and just wipe everybody off the equity table at the start of the company just because some investor has you know, a significant amount of funds and believes what we're doing. So what we've done is we've really developed and picked our management team so that we can survive in this time by going out and focusing on clients who we know have a lot of issues with drug delivery. So the other thing that you're going to look for in your management team is certainly character, values, and a commitment to be called upon, right? When you ask someone to do something, when you ask them, hey, listen, we got to get the slide deck done. You know, I know you got other obligations with work right now, and this is a startup company, but you got to do this. You got to get these slides for me. You got to know that you can turn to those people and get the response, right? So that's where that infectious passion has to continue to be able to pull the team out. The character and the values, you know, you certainly want to be with some like-minded people, but you also want to have people that have, you know, values that are a little bit different than yours, because it adds to that diversity of the management team, and it makes you think, you know, especially as a startup CEO, it takes your blinders off, and it allows you to experience and understand things that are, you know, important to the people that you're trying to build this company with. Because at some point, as you grow this company, as I learned with BioCash, where we went from 2 employees one summer to 14 the next summer, culture matters. And so you've got to be able to build, the character of your leaders is really going to influence the culture of the organization that you're trying to build. So developing your management team at the outset is going to be, you know, one of the things that a startup entrepreneur is going to have to do, whether you're a faculty member, whether you're you know, a graduate student, it doesn't matter. Picking your management team is probably some of the most important decisions you'll be making. So on this slide, the one thing I wanted to really touch upon here is, we've already talked about the skills and quality by design and how, you know, thinking from the problem back to you know, the seminal experiments or the seminal prototypes is very important. And the way I like to think about it is when you go out and play golf, right? You want to get the ball in the hole, right? It's what everybody wants to do, fewest amount of strokes. Well, if you play that backwards in your head, you're going to do better, because you're going to know that, all right, I want to hit a 200-yard drive here, and then I want to take my 9-iron out, and I want to hit 150 yards into the front of the green, and then I want a 3-foot putt. That's what I want to do. So it's the same way with thinking about your product development. You know, you certainly want to play the game backwards so that you think about all the different issues that are going to arise as you build your team. So that's in terms of bringing in different skills to the mix. The outsourcing and part-timers, that's also going to help you really understand some of the issues that you're not addressing with your core team. And you want to be able to use those people very sparingly, but you want to be able to use them effectively. Oftentimes your investors board and advisors can really be those folks, but in an industry like drug delivery, pharmaceuticals, where you're regulated, you have to bring in the right people who are going to understand. So one of the issues I'm sure we're going to have at some point here is how do we power our clinical trials so that if we show that we have an efficacious response, that it's statistically significant. I just don't want to go out and enroll 100 patients. I want to know that if I enroll 100 patients, the result that I'm going to get is going to be meaningful to the agency. And so I need that interplay between a consultant a biostatistician, right, and my regulatory person. And I can't afford to keep a non-staff biostatistician at this point. So I've got to be able to bring in skill sets when I need them to really develop the company. Getting the best people. So one of the reasons I came back to Massachusetts was that in Richmond, I was always repatriating people to Richmond, so that they could be managers and advisors and this, that, and the other thing. They had to drive down from DC or they had to fly up from Atlanta, But one of the great things in my industry, in the biomedical industry, is that I can find great people. And one of the things that an entrepreneur tends to do is say, I've got passion, I want to do this, and they run out and they talk to two people, and they say, oh, do you want to join my team, right? We're in an environment up here, at least in biomedical sciences, where you can go out and you can talk to a lot of different people. You can make your decisions slowly so that you can bring in the right people, okay? And we're also in an environment here in Massachusetts where a lot of people who know a lot of people. So I mentioned Deb Norman earlier as a member of our team. She lives in Phoenix, Arizona, so she's not enjoying the great weather we're having today. Okay, but here's a person who I need her skill set, I need her talents, and the way technology evolution is going right now, I can reach out and talk to her at any time that I want, and she keeps weird hours, so I can always talk to her at 2 o'clock in the morning if I need to. So, finding the best people doesn't have to be geographically situated anymore. You really do have the technological tools to reach out to people. And certainly, people in the ages of 18 to 29 know those tools better than me, and I just keep fighting to keep up with all of them. But there's a lot of ways that you can pull teams together, foster collaboration, solve a problem, and then move on to the next issue. And you can do that with a lot of different technology. The last piece is really an interesting one that every entrepreneur faces. Be aware of people unwilling to share early risks. Okay? You may be willing to go out and start the company, be self-funding, can take care of yourself. But in our industry, we've got a lot of people who have 10, 20 years experience, they have families, they want to start something new, they're in a funk in their own job, they've been bitten by that entrepreneurial bug, but the risk, they've got families they need to take care of, they've got mortgages, so you really have to be careful to pick your teammates well so that that if that venture capital comes in, or if that first commercial contract comes in that's going to be significant enough to get the company self-funded, you want to make sure that they're going to be on board. And so you're going to have very clear discussions about how much capital do we have to have on board before you'll make the jump? How much equity participation do you need to have before you'll make the jump? And so as an early stage leader, you've got to have those conversations to be able to be frank with some of your folks that, okay, you want 24 months, I can only guarantee 18. Will you do it? And if, once again, as an early stage leader, you've got to be able to go out there and if the person could be the best person, but if you can't come to a resolution as to what's going to make them join the team, you got to move on because you've got to be able to get the company up and